All right, recording is on. So I'm briefly going to go over the agenda today. We're going to have a welcome brief introductions from staff. We're going to talk over the PLOS academic editor role and what it entails and kind of introduction to our systems. We'll have a brief Q&A, and then we'll have some closing statements. And at the end, we're going to separate into breakout rooms so that you can get to meet each other and kind of talk and socialize. As for introductions, my name is Charles. I've been with PLOS for about, I think, 6 years. I work with the research and recruitment team, and what that means is we try to improve the experience for our authors by having a well-represented editorial board. We also try to have a better experience for academic editors such as yourself by working in projects such as with engineering to improve the relevance of invitations that get sent to you, adjusting the level of invitations, as well as some other functions. Jan Hong, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. My name is Jan Hong Zhou. I'm a staff editor at the PLOS One, the life science team specifically. I've been at PLOS for almost 5 years, and I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. As a staff editor, my daily work includes like the submission scan. That means before we assign manuscripts to academic editors, staff editors like me will take a look at the submissions to make sure they meet our publication criteria. In addition, we also check the decision letters of the academic editors to ensure transparency and quality feedback to the authors. Besides that, we also handle appeal requests from the authors and publication ethic cases as well. Overall, my job is to provide editorial support to the authors, academic editors, and the reviewers.
All right, so I'm going to launch a brief poll just to get kind of a sense of the folks that are participating in today's meeting. So I'm just going to give that 2 minutes for everyone to answer those questions, and then we'll move on to the next portion of the meeting. All right, thank you for all your responses. So it looks like we got a pretty well-represented group of folks who are going to be academic editors for PLOS One, as well as PLOS Global Health, and we have one in PLOS Mental Health. I noticed that a lot of you are more senior researchers, so you have more than 5 years of experience in this area. And a lot of you are serving as academic editors for one journal. That's amazing, and thanks for choosing us. We really appreciate it. So moving on. So PLOS One editorial boards. In general, the not PLOS One, but PLOS editorial boards in general are very broad in category. We try to be as diverse in geography, career stages, and subject area as possible. If you would like to look for other members of the editorial board, we have links posted on the slide for each of our journals for, sorry, excuse me, one, climate, global public health, mental health, and water. So for the purposes of just demonstration, this is how you would see it for PLOS One. We have similar web pages set up for other editorial boards for our different journals as well. So you can search based either on classifications or sections. So if you would like to look for other potential colleagues in, let's say, cognitive psychology, you can do that as well. So you can either go by classifications or sections, and you can look up other people who would also be in your subject area. If you want to collaborate, if you want to, expand kind of your network. And we have two roles, which is in the editorial board, which is the section editors. That's more of a subject area advisory role. And then we have academic editors who are, for all intents and purposes, are in charge of kind of the peer review process and decide what kind of research articles we publish. So the academic editor role, as mentioned, you would oversee the peer review process from beginning to end. You'll conduct your initial evaluation. You'll find and invite reviewers. You'll evaluate the reviewers' feedback. You'll make editorial decisions, and you'll communicate these decisions to the authors. And academic editors play an important role because they're active in the community and are highly engaged as representatives of PLOS. So you can find the complete role description on this webpage. This is for one, but it applies for all other journals as well. So we also have a code of conduct that was sent with onboarding materials, but in general, we would like to have academic editors follow these guidelines, which are having a research ethics integrity, which is abiding to the highest standards set by a scientific community, selfless editing and peer review. We would like to have ethical peer review, confidentiality, editorial judgment and quality. And we also like to have diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we would like to see these values represented in action. And we would also like our academic editors to declare their affiliation when they join the editorial board. So for a full list of the kind of the code of conduct guidelines, you can access them at PLOS.org. There's an editor center that provides all this information. Yes, I can do a slide presentation. I'm sorry about that. It's just so I have to click on multiple links. So let me do a slide presentation. Ooh. All right, so the first thing to get started is the getting started with editorial manager. The key things to do are to update your information, indicate your areas of expertise, which is really important for us to be able to assign the correct, I wouldn't say correct, but the appropriate manuscripts, research articles with the subject area that you have expertise in. And also it's important to set unavailability dates. And I'm going to go briefly on kind of what you'll need to do to set up with our editorial manager system. So you want to log into your journal specific editorial manager. Each one of them are different for our different journals. So if you're PLOS Global Public Health, you'll need to log into PLOS Global Public Health specifically. You'll enter your username and password. And then most importantly, you'll need to make sure that your role is set to academic editor when you log in. So one of the key things is that when you go on your profile, there is going to be an option up on the top that says update my information. And when you go there, it would have areas of interest or expertise, and you would want to select your personal classifications and also personal keywords. So the personal classifications are from a set of fixed taxonomic terms. So what you'll find is that if you search for something such as birds, you'll find birds, and it'll be a hierarchical arrangement of terms going from broad to more specific. And you would select the ones that are most relevant for you, as well as any broader, higher level terms. And then once you have those added, remember to submit those changes so that they show up on your profile. And this is very important because if you are on PLOS Global Public Health, PLOS Mental Health, PLOS Climate, PLOS Water, we use these classifications directly to assign I wouldn't say assign, but send invitations to you for manuscripts with similar classifications as well. You can also edit keywords because sometimes there are terms that are not well represented in our taxonomy. So once you type in the keyword, it's a free text. It'll help us kind of figure out if we had to do a manual search, which sometimes staff have to do, we can look for these more specific areas more easily. So other things that you can update is your ORCID. You can tie your ORCID to your editorial manager account. You should ideally update your personal information whenever you have institutional changes so that we know how to keep in contact with you. And unavailability dates are important. We understand that there are going to be times when you're going to be especially busy. For example, there are finals. If you have to go on vacation, please put unavailability dates so that we know that we shouldn't send invitations to you. And it's quite simple. Just put a start, an end date, and kind of reasons, and we'll make sure that we'll make the correct arrangements so that you won't get bombarded by invitations when you can't respond. And then on the main menu, you have several items, which is the editor to-do list, submissions and decisions. Basically, it goes a brief overview of kind of the status of all the manuscripts that need action. So you'll have pending assignments that has new invitations, which are the new incoming ones that we're asking, hey, could you come and handle this? You also have the new assignments, submissions required, reviews, and different statuses. And then there's one with active discussions as well as reviews in progress. So on your EM page, you should be seeing kind of this, which gives you a summary of all that's happening, as well as the ones you're working on. So new invitations, typically you'll see the manuscript invitations directly to your email. You can accept or decline. And before you do that, you can also read the full submissions if you go on the EM page and go to new invitations and look at the pending manuscript invitation invites.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? I missed where the you mentioned we can enter like vacation or downtime. How do you get to that? I'm looking at editorial.
Yeah, sorry about that. So you would go to if you go to update my information, there should be a tab called unavailable dates. And then when you scroll onto the bottom, you will see that there is going to be a menu that's similar to this where you can add the start date and end date, and you can put the reason. I noticed there's a question here. Do you need to regularly check EM for assignments? I believe you do receive invitations in email, and then you also receive reminders for active invitations and assigned manuscripts through a system called Acer. So it should be covered there. But yeah, if you have any questions, please post on chat. I'll try to answer as best as I can during the Q&A session.
You're muted.
Thank you for that. Yeah, going from where I left off, I believe I was talking about the new invitation. So you can, when you go to your new invitation page from editorial manager, you can decide to either view the submissions before accepting or declining invitations beforehand. And if you do declined, we ask that you put a reason for declined. This helps us with kind of understanding kind of the suitability of the manuscripts. It helps us adjust invitations so it's more relevant to your specific interest. It also tells us about your unavailability or things that are happening, and we can make adjustments. So staff does read the reasons for decline. We pull the reports and we will look over it, and we'll try to accommodate for whatever reason that you might have. If it's too busy, we may go to your account and make sure that you receive less invitations, or add unavailability dates if you say, oh, I'm very busy at this time, so that you can kind of get a break. All right, so in terms of the different statuses that you'll see, there are statuses for on the menu for new assignments, and these are the manuscripts that require initial actions. There will be submissions with required reviews complete, require additional reviewers, one or more late reviews. These are basically your manuscripts organized by specific status. And then sometimes you'll have submissions with active discussions. So what that means is if a staff editor has a submission they would like your input on, they will contact you via discussion, and you'll kind of communicate with them there. You'll also receive an email notification. So you can look into that. I don't know how often that occurs, but Jan Holm might be able to give more insight for that in a later slide. So finally, there are reviews. Not finally, but there are reviews in process, which is manuscripts where you have invited reviewers or secured reviewers and are waiting for the response for review. And then finally, there are submissions with decisions. So these are manuscripts for which you have issued a decision. And this is kind of an overview of like if you see a status, it'll show you how many papers that you have with reviews completed. And also the active assignments. So we're going to go over kind of inviting reviewers. One of the things that you will find is that sometimes people you want to invite aren't in the system already, and you can register new users so that they are logged into the system. There are also other manuscript actions that you could do, view submissions so that you can see the whole PDF of what is in the submissions. There's details, there's invite reviewers, there's view reviews and comments, submitting your decision and comments, as well as sending emails. So when you view a submission, some of the important things to note are the PLOS reviewers, which is the people that the authors would not like to handle a manuscript for whatever reason. We do encounter sometimes cases where there's a miscommunication and recommended reviewers get put into PLOS reviewers. So just keep an eye out on that. There's also additional information, such as those provided by authors at submissions, financial disclosure, competing interests, ethics statements, unavailability, data availability. You can also access high resolution versions of each figure by clicking the blue link at the top of the page where each figure appears on. So you can also find along the submission, you can find supporting information and related information via blue links at the end of the submission PDF. So the details usually contains kind of the notes left behind by staff. They can also contain a list of the authors, the keywords, the abstract, the reviewer statuses. And in the reviewer statuses, you can monitor basically when the reviewer was invited, agreed, when the due date is, and when it was completed, as well as a recommendation. You can also find additional information such as competing interests and social media suggestions. You also have a menu for history, which contains a chronological listing of the manuscript status and correspondence history. This is especially useful if you're handling a paper where another academic editor was working on it, but the paper had to be reassigned for whatever reason. There's also a file inventory, which contains all the files included in submissions. Finally, for inviting reviewers, I noticed we did get several questions about inviting reviewers, which we'll cover in the Q&A session. So with reviewer search, you can either do the direct search. The options is direct search or Web of Science reviewer locator. So direct search is you already have someone in mind, you found someone, you look for their first name, last name, or the email, and then we'll see if it shows up in the system. If they do not show up in the system, then you would have to register it using that menu item for register new user. And once they're in the system, you can invite them using the invitation box. There's two options, which is INV, which is the normal invite, and then there's alt. And the alternate reviewers are automatically invited when invited reviewers decline. So it keeps it so that invitations aren't sent out en masse, and it's only sent out when necessary when the previous potential reviewers declined. So you can also find reviewers using search field. After you make your initial selections, it'll remember which reviewers you selected, so you can move around the pages. Finally, we have the Web of Science reviewer locator. I believe we did get a question about, is there any way to see more than 30 reviewer suggestions? I don't believe that's possible. So you would select the Web of Science reviewer locator tab, and it will return a list of reviewers from the Web of Science database, but we would advise that you still check their profile to make sure that they're appropriate candidates. A lot of this is indexed by machine, so it might not be appropriate. So please just use your best judgment when inviting these reviewers suggested by the Web of Science reviewer locator. So as before, you can invite the reviewers using the invite box, and then you can also select Alt so that you have a list of reviewers where they're backup in case the initial wave declines. And also, if they're not present in the editorial manager database, there will be a new pop-up box about proxy registration. Unlike before, you don't need to register a new reviewer like you did with the rec search, and the system should do it for you most of the heavy lifting. All right, so registering a new reviewer, if you have a reviewer in mind and they're not on the EM database, you can click the button that says register and select a new reviewer. And then you would need to have their email address and fill out their personal information. So you would need their first name, last name, and country of origin. So these are the required fields. The rest are optional. So once that happens, you can register a reviewer and send a letter. And then when you send a letter, it'll notify them that they have an account created on Editorial Manager, and that's their login information. So you might have received this letter if you ever been invited to be a reviewer for any of the PLOS journals. The body of the letter more or less says, "Oh, you've been registered on the Editorial Manager online submission and peer review tracking." So you can now select the desired reviewer once that letter gets sent out, and you can proceed to send an invitation to review that manuscript that you're working on. So once you're finished making your selections, you would press proceed. There's dates that you can set, the days to review. Ideally, we would just keep it with the default, which is 10 days to review, but this varies depending on the subject area. And then you can also customize the letters to whatever you see fit. I mean, leaving a personal note is it depends on the manuscript. If you have something specific to mention to reviewers beforehand, and then you would confirm selections and proceed. And then you can monitor all this from the review status of the invite reviewers page that you just were on to invite these reviewers, and to check if there are any alternative reviewers left in the queue that still has not had an invite sent to them. For papers where it's a revised manuscripts, you don't need to re-invite all the completely new reviewers if you felt the previous reviewers did a pretty good job. So you could go to a tab specifically for previous reviewers and invite them from the same page as well. And you'll ideally would want the appropriate letter template. So we usually use this template called the invitation previous reviewer on revision to let them know, oh, you handled this paper before. Would you like to handle it again for this revised version? And then you can also review the reviews and comments and anything that's been uploaded as an attachment. So some people put the reviews as a Word document. So that's an alternative way of submitting a review too. You can review the review comments, check out the suggested decision type, and also the completed form. And all this is automatically pulled into your decision letter. And once you have that all set up and you're ready to issue a decision, you would click view reviews and comments and select the decision type at the top of the page, and you would proceed. You do not need to type anything confidential comments to editor or comments to author section. You will add your academic editor comments in the decision letter. And then once you're done, proceed and then replace the placeholder text of your own comments. You would want to add context to your editorial decision by removing the placeholder text. It's not sufficient just to leave the placeholder text or leave that section blank. So this would be how it looks. You would see this placeholder text in the decision letter, and then you would insert your comments here. And once you're done, you would submit your decision letter, draft letter, and then send an email. Oh, sorry. And then finally, the last option is if you ever need to ask the journal office anything, you can go on a send email option, and then you would have an edit query to journal office, and it will directly contact people who are responsible for whatever specific query that you have. And I know that's all information, so thank you all for your patience. Editorial manager is something that's is very vital, but it's also there are a lot of little tiny details involved. So I'm going to go over the life of a manuscript. So typically what happens to a manuscript is that an author submits his manuscript. We do an initial technical check, which makes sure that formatting is correct. We have all the information that we need, that the figures on there are properly uploaded. And then we would do subscan. Well, I wouldn't do subscan, but a staff editor like Jan Hong would do subscan, looking over whether or not the manuscript meets our publication criteria, whether or not it's within scope, as well as their ethics statement. And then moves on to academic editor assignment, which means that we're sending you an invitation, seeing whether or not you are up for handling that manuscript. And then once you have that, and if you accept the invitation, you'll have two options, which is one, you can reject without review, and then you'll provide the reason why a manuscript doesn't meet the publication criteria. Or you would handle the paper, you would solicit reviews, you'll submit your decision, after which there's going to be an additional technical check and decision is sent to the authors. And there are three ways to go about it, which is they'll either revise it, in which case the author submitted revised manuscripts. It goes through technical check again, and it comes back, ideally back to you when you previously, or another academic editor if the previous one was unavailable. It could also be rejected, and the one that authors are most wanting to happen is accept, whereupon it'll go through final technical check, it'll go through production, and then it'll get published on the webpage. So invitations, you'll be receiving invitations through email. Most will be sent through an algorithm if you are on PLOS One, or they're going to be going through classification matching if you're going to be on climate, GPH, mental health, or water. Sorry, GPH stands for global public health. And you always have the choice to accept or decline invitations. So there's a quick guide that I can show you. Once again, invitations are usually coming through email. If you are an academic editor on PLOS One, they're sent through an algorithm, and you always have the choice to accept or decline an invitation. So in an invitation, generally, this is what you'll see sent to you. This is the same across journals too, just that the heading is different depending on what journal you're an academic editor in. So typically you'll have an invitation and then a manuscript number. You can check the author list to see if there might be a competing interest. You can also view the submission editorial manager before accepting or declining the invitation. And then you will have some placeholder text for, not placeholder text, but some boilerplate text for guidelines, in which case it's typically accept that if you're willing to handle a manuscript as soon as possible, and there's going to be information on the peer review history as well as some other information. You can accept it directly from your email. Clicking on that link will navigate you to the editorial manager page where you can take action. You can also decline it directly from email, where they'll also link you to editorial manager where you enter a decline reason. The invitations are sent on a queue basis. So usually if you decline an invite, the invite will be sent to the next person in the queue. Sometimes what happens is that another editor will accept the invitation before you have had a chance to respond, just because of how the queuing works and the time it takes for people to respond to invitations. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact the email listed at the closing of the email that was the invitation that was sent to you. For those who are academic editors on PLOS One, invitations are sent out by a natural language processing algorithm called PLOS Match. So it compares the text of the manuscript with the text that we have on file with you, as well as your keywords to create a similarity score, and it builds a queue of editors to invite. Because it uses the text of your authored papers, classifications, keywords, it'll learn, and over time, it should be better. If the algorithm doesn't find an editor within 10 days, what will happen is that members of staff will send those invitations based on classifications, keywords, and sections in editorial manager. So it's best practice to have those up to date so that we can send the most appropriate papers to you. Sorry about. Yeah, for PLOS Global Public Health, PLOS Mental Health, plus water and plus climate, only this part of it applies, which is they send it based on classifications, keywords, and sections in the editorial manager. It doesn't use the text of your authored papers, classifications, keywords for now. We plan to implement that sometime in the future. So there are some circumstances where you may also occasionally receive personal invites directly from PLOS staff to handle manuscripts requiring special attention. Usually those messages will contain clear and detailed instructions about the circumstances and specific handling. So please keep in mind of those specific invitations. So in terms of responding to invitations, the expectations are that you would accept 1 to 2 manuscript invitations per month. You always have a choice to decline or accept an invitation. And this is the general peer review timeline to help you decide whether or not to accept or decline an invitation. Usually the initial evaluation takes 3 days. And then securing a reviewer takes 1 to 2 weeks. We know that that depends heavily on the subject area. We know that during COVID and even now, a lot of the AEs who are in public health, this is taking way longer. And we understand there's going to be differences between subject areas. So this is just guidelines. They're pretty flexible depending on your subject area. 2 to 3 weeks to have manuscript reviewers, and then once that the reviews have been secured, 3 days to issue the decision. And then this will get repeated for every revision cycle that a paper goes through. Consider accepting an invitation when you have enough time to handle the submission to final decision. If it's within your area of expertise and that you do not have competing interests, you can also accept an invitation when it's not suitable for peer review. As mentioned earlier in the life of the manuscript, if you receive an invitation to a paper that you feel doesn't meet our publication criteria, you can accept the invitation and reject it. You should also consider declining invitation when you're too busy and when it's outside your area of expertise. The algorithm learns based on papers you have accepted. So if you accept papers that are outside of your area of expertise, it's kind of feeding it information that might cause your future recommendation to be not as appropriate. And you should also consider declining if you have real perceived competing interests. Because of how the algorithm works on +1 specifically, you might receive invitations that are outside your area of expertise. If you feel confident in the general methodology, and you're able to identify suitable reviewers with the appropriate amount of expertise, we suggest that you accept the invitation and make sure the reviewer panel has that expertise to fill that gap. But if you're not confident, please decline the invitation. If you also feel that a manuscript is an area of expertise and you have time, but is not suitable for peer review, as mentioned before, please accept the invitation and reject, citing the publication criteria. So we got frequently asked questions and comments. How many invitations am I expected to handle? Well, you are not expected to accept all the invitations that are sent to you, but we expect editors to agree to handle 1 to 2 new manuscripts per month and a minimum of 6 per year. The volume of invitation depends heavily on the submission volume, the composition and availability of editors in that specific subject area, and also how well we match terms from submissions to your profile. So if you do accept the invitation, we ask that you please handle it through to final decision. We also have folks who mentioned that I'm receiving too many, too few, and or outside my expertise invitations. So because for +1, we use this through an algorithm, it might not be the best because the algorithm needs time to learn. If you are on PLOS Global Public Health or PLOS Water or Climate, that does not use the match algorithm and you're having a poor experience, we would ask that you contact us directly and we'll make the necessary adjustments. It is possible that there are some terms there that are not being useful in terms of identifying the correct expertise and matching that with the manuscripts that we receive. So invitations say, please accept or decline this assignment within 24 hours. That is a fast turnaround. This is a guideline. We know that all of you have busy schedules, and because this is a volunteer position, we do ask that just so that the authors have a better experience to respond as soon as possible. And the last point here is I agree to handle manuscript, but it says it is no longer available. Because of the queuing system and how it works, and the invitations are sent on a list of AEs, it is possible that a previous person on the list picks up that manuscript and then accepts it before you had a chance to respond. And that's it for handling invitations. This is once again the general guideline. It doesn't mirror all subject areas, so we're very cognizant of that, and we're pretty flexible in that regard. And I'm gonna stop sharing. So Jen Hong, would you please take it away?
Sure. Let me share my screen. No. Where is my let me see. Stop. I think I shared a different screen. Slides. Am I sharing the right screen? No. Sorry.
Yeah, if you can, I did see a presentation. If you could just open up the slideshow so that they can see the text in a much larger way.
Let me see. So the screen, this one? No.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so everyone is seeing the slides, right? Okay, so from here I will talk briefly about like the manuscript assessment. Once you agree to handle a manuscript, we expect you to do an initial evaluation based on our publication criteria or any information left by the staff editors like me when we're doing the sub-scan. And at this point, you can decide whether or not to send a manuscript for peer review, or you can reject without review if you feel it does not meet our criteria. Here is a quick guide. I'm going to quickly go through. So across all the journals mentioned here, the publication criteria are the same. So before we assign manuscript to you, like I mentioned, we will assess, staff editors will briefly take a look and ensure it meets our criteria. And we mainly focus on the whether the manuscript is in scope or if there's any ethic issues or language issues. So when you look at the manuscript assigned to you, you can focus on our publication criteria 3 or 4 or 7. For instance, you can ask questions like, is this analysis or study technical sound, or is the conclusions overstated, or is the reporting, it meet the reporting guidelines in this community. So additional resource and links for each journal, so you can find the policies here for each journal. So just a reminder that for the journals mentioned here, we do not reject based on novelty or impact. And also, if language is the only concern, we also encourage you not reject it. We would ask the authors to copy edit. The information for the academic editor, those are the information you can find in the at top of the manuscript in the information to editor section of the details page, or that you can find that information in the invitation letter to you. things like if we have like some specific concerns about animal ethics, or if it's like a controversial topic, we might leave some messages to you, just ask you to secure at least 2 reviewers, for instance. Other information we might provide is for like a specific article type. Like we have like a lab protocols, study protocols, or clinical trials studies. For those article type, we will provide additional guidance to you in regard how to handle them. At this point, like I mentioned, you do not need to send every manuscript out for peer review if you feel they do not meet our criteria. We ask you to provide your specific reasons or cite our publication criteria regarding why the manuscript will not proceed without peer review. Because if you do not outline the reasons, the authors might come back to us, and that will trigger an appeal case. And sometimes we will consult you again regarding that previous rejection decision. But if you decide to proceed with peer review, keep in mind that for all the accepted manuscripts, we require at least 1 external reviewers besides you before they can be accepted. Here we listed a few occasions that a manuscript can be rejected without review. For instance, if you feel that there are serious methodological flaws, or the conclusions are not supported by the data because of limited sample size, or you found that this study is a redundant work without any discussion or citation of previous similar work, you can reject them without a review. So in other cases, we encourage you to seek external peer review. Frequently asked questions at this point is like, for instance, what should I do if the manuscript have poor language? Should it be rejected? Like I mentioned, we do not encourage that because we felt the author should be provided a chance for copy edit. But PLOS do not provide copy edit service to others. We partners with other vendors to provide discounted services to PLOS audit authors. So another common question we received is, if the manuscript does not have any results, can we consider it? So for +1, we accept lab protocols or study protocols. For those protocol article type, all of them do not have results. So please, if you are handling those lab protocol articles, if the author do not have any results, we ask you please do not reject them. So I think that's pretty much what I'd like to mention about the initial evaluation. The next step is the most challenging part. If you decide to send the manuscript off for peer review, you are responsible to find and secure reviewers. So our goal here is to find suitable reviewers that have the expertise in the subject matter and the methodology, and the reviewers ideally should be actively publishing and unbiased. So we know securing reviewers are very challenging, so I will provide some strategies or tips that from our editorial board members in this link below. As mentioned by Charles, the reviewer invitations are all managed in Editorial Manager. So we will take a look at the quick guide here, finding and securing reviewers. So there's a checklist for suitable reviewers. We encourage you to invite reviewers that have published 5 or more papers on the topic, preferably as corresponding author or the last author. Ideally, the reviewers should have the expertise in the research area, and if possible, also the methodology. The reviewers should have at the postdoc level or equivalent degree level, and they can be affiliated to any like academic or government or nonprofit or companies. So required checks for competing interest and unbiased perspective. This check requires you to avoid inviting reviewers that work at the same institution as any of the authors or any or other reviewers. And we also ask you to avoid invite reviewers that have co-published with the author within the last 5 years. So, if like one common question here is, what if you accidentally invited a reviewer that have, like, for instance, co-published with the author? In that case, we might come to you, email you, and ask for your comments and request you to invite at least additional reviewers to compromise that bias. So here are some helpful tips for you. First, you can start invite researchers that you know or researchers whose work you know. And the other tools, like Charles mentioned previously, like the Web of Science Review Locator, PubMed, and Google Scholar, Web of Science, those are all very helpful sources. And you can also check out the reference list in the article, just be mindful of the competing interest. A lot of times we notice that if you invite earlier career researchers, they tend to have more time or more willing to review than senior editors. But that does not mean you cannot invite senior researchers. For senior researchers, we encourage you to invite them, but ask them to co-reviewing. For instance, they can ask their postdocs or students to review and for them to gain review experiences. In addition, sometimes provide some personalized concerns in the reviewer invitation letters helps that makes the reviewers more aware of what the concerns are and what the manuscript is about. And so in EM, Charles just sent you, showed you there is an alternative reviewer set up button option. So that means if you set a reviewer as an alternative review, they will be automatically invited when the previous reviewer declines or do not respond. Finally, if you feel it's necessary, the journal can help with statistical reviewers. We do this routinely for clinical trial manuscripts, but for other non-clinical trial manuscripts, if you feel a statistical reviewer is necessary, the journal can arrange that. In here, we generally suggest that you invite 8 reviewers at a time to secure 2 reviewers. That is based on the average number. And so if the reviewer doesn't respond in, I believe in 7 calendar days, that invitation automatically expires. And I think EM will send you a reminder that it's time to invite new reviewers. Here are some frequently asked questions. For instance, like how many reviewers should I invite at once? We generally recommend inviting 8 reviewers the first round, but that varies, like Charles mentioned, varies depending whereas in the like subject area or time of the year, like for instance, like the summer days or like holiday days, it may take more time or more reviewers to finally agree to handle a manuscript. Yeah, so Charles already mentioned this. We gave the reviewers 10 days to finish the review report, but if they ask for extension, we will generally grant it, but I will not recommend increasing it to more than 21 days, just to be mindful about the delay in handling the manuscript, because we got authors' complaints about the reviewer process is very long. So that's why we set up this limit. Do I need to send reminders to reviewers? So EM is set up to support you in this aspect. Like I mentioned, if they're not respond within 7 calendar days, the invitation expires and the next round continues. And if the agreed review, review agreed to invite to handle the manuscript, but they do not submit the report within 16 days, well, the EM will also automatically uninvite that reviewer. So another very common situation is a lot of academic editors, they're struggling with finding reviewers, and they ask us, can we reject the manuscript because I cannot find reviewers? The short answer is no. Any rejection decisions should be based on the publication criteria. However, if you ever come into this difficult situation, you may want to evaluate the manuscript based on our publication criteria. Because a lot of times when there's no reviewers agree to handle a manuscript, that's often an indicator of that manuscript may be a candidate for rejection without a peer review. Okay. So that's finding and securing reviewers. Once you have received a reviewer's report, you are expected to make a decision based on the reviewer's comments. We also have a quick guide about assessing reviews and making decisions here. The key takeaways is that the reviews are in a structured form, and so it's very common that the reviewers invited will provide very different recommendations. For instance, one reviewer might think, oh, this should be rejected. Another reviewer might, oh, this is okay, it can be accepted. So in these situations, we provided some guidance how to handle those. So in this case, we suggest that we decide which reviewers' comments are necessary. Sometimes the reviewers are not aware of our policy. For instance, they might suggest rejection based on novelty. So that means that reviewer might not familiar with our publication criteria. And also, we ask you to give weight to the reviewer comments based on their individual expertise. If a reviewer that you invited have a specialized background that you feel may be better situated to assess the manuscript, we ask you to please access the feedback on those aspects accordingly. So if you cannot make a decision on your own, you can ask the reviewers to expand the comments or simply invite another reviewer instead. So making your decisions, we have 4 decisions option. One thing I would like to highlight here is the differences between the major revision and minor revision. So we both give authors 45 days to revise and resubmit, but the difference is that in the case of minor revision, expected that the manuscript will likely be accepted once it comes back and the authors made all the requested changes. But for major revision, that is not a guarantee. If you would like to accept a manuscript, please make sure that you have no other concerns or the reviewers have not raised additional comments, because once a manuscript is accepted, it will go to production and there will be no editorial oversight until it's published. For rejection decisions, it's usually that you feel or the reviewers feel that the manuscript does not meet our publication criteria or requires substantial changes. Usually no further actions are needed if you issue a rejection decision unless the authors request an appeal. In that case, the staff editors like me will first review the author's request and make sure that their appeal request makes sense and is justified. And then we will consult you again about whether the manuscript can be reconsidered. Yeah, a good decision letter. A lot of times, we will check the decision letters of the academic editors, because sometimes they are not specific enough, or for instance, if there are split reviews and the decision letter does not outline the reasons why you made a decision different from the reviewer's recommendations. So for those situations, we ask you always keep the decision letter very clear, and ideally cite our publications so that the authors understand what criteria are not met. And also because the reviewers also receive a copy of the decision letter, they will understand if you issue a decision different from the recommendation about your rationale and reasons. So overall, we expect you to handle a manuscript through to the final decision, whether it's an accept or rejection. But if for some reason you are not able to do so, please let us know as soon as possible to avoid delays. Sometimes you may see situations that the reviewers suggest citation request, and we expect you to notify us that in these situations, citation requests are always optional. The authors are not required to cite the citations requested by the reviewers. The last point is the authors can have the options to publish the peer review history if their manuscripts are accepted. In those cases, your decision letter will be published along with the other peer review comments. So I think that's pretty much about the assessing a review or making decisions. The final link I'd like to show you is about this publication ethics. Frequently asked questions for the board members. This is very helpful documents that put together by the staff, especially from our publication ethics team. In this, there are a lot of information here, but I'm not going to the details in the interest of time, but we are asking for your help to be mindful of any of the following ethic issues, such as like duplicate submissions, or image concerns, or competing of interest, or animal ethics, or citation request. We expect you to report to us any of these ethic issues, but you are not expected to follow up because the journal staff will investigate those cases. So I highly encourage you to read this document and what our expectations are. because this is because we take publication ethics very seriously. Of course, all the journals, and we ask for your help to maintain the journal's reputation and the research integrity. And I think I will stop sharing here and ask Charles to take over, please.
So I'm just going to go over a bit more resources. So as mentioned, and there was a question in chat about where you can find resources for editor webpage. It's journal specific, so you can look for it either with the general link that I sent in chat, where it will redirect you to a specific journal webpage. Additionally, we have the PLOS One discourse, which is a forum for if you want to talk with like-minded folks about things you encountered. It's a discussion forum. For journal contact with specific manuscript queries, they're listed below here with these emails. For specific help with the editorial board, role, you can contact the edboard support at PLOS.org. So I'm going to begin the Q&A session. We received a couple of questions, which I wrote down here. And the most recent questions we had was, you suggested we can ask senior researchers to co-review with a mentee of theirs. How will the junior researcher be credited for helping with the review in such situations? I believe in the review form there is an entry for whether or not you've received assistance with completing the review. I'm not sure how that represents in other systems, because I know that we're trying to link it with I believe Web of Science 2 to show that, oh, you have completed this review. Jianhong, do you know anything about this?
So the review form definitely have that option to include anyone who helped with the review, but I'm not sure whether how is that can be credited or linked to other like reviewer systems.
Yeah, so I'll have to ask and get back to you on that question. I'll make a note of that. Another question we received was, what's the best way to check where a potential reviewer has collaborated with anyone on the byline? So for when I look at manuscripts and I have to do basically matching people with papers, one of the ways that we do that is that we check on Google Scholar to see if they're a part of an author list together. We also may check on PubMed. Those are options available to see if they have co-published before, and Google Scholar tends to have a fair amount of information across all areas, whereas PubMed is much more limited. So I would suggest going on Google Scholar and seeing if the two have co-authorships. Okay, another question that we have is, can I invite reviewers from my university? Is there any conflict? I guess Jianhong kind of covered it earlier, where I believe you could, but we suggest doing that as rarely as possible and to invite those outside of your institution. If there's anything you want to add, Jianhong?
Yeah, Charles, right? You can invite reviewers from your own institution, but we encourage not to invite reviewers only from your institution, just to make the reviewer pool larger to get different opinions.
So moving on to the next question, if we get a major and a reject decision from different reviewers, is a recommended decision to reject the manuscript? And that kind of goes on with what you were saying earlier about split reviews, Jianhong, which is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like we should consider each reviewer and weigh what is most relevant to the manuscript.
Yeah, it depends what the reasons are for the rejection decisions. If the rejection decision mentions novelty or any other comments that not aligned with our publication criteria, I would definitely encourage you to ignore that rejection decision and focus on the comments related to science or any methodology concerns.
So the next question that we have is, how are COIs handled, specifically if you are a co-author who sends who submits a paper or on a paper submitted to one? How does the staff select an editor and what happens next? So in terms of like invitations being sent to papers that we get, because the algorithm isn't really capable of more complex searches like parsing through Google Scholar, it tends to just have a basic check of whether or not they're the same institution. So a lot of the kind of responsibilities on the academic editor to make sure that they're not accepting invitation to handle manuscript that's part of their collaborators. And we have another question here that says, if a reviewer recommends too many DOIs, can we delete some of them? My understanding is we should not edit the reviews that a reviewer submits, and that if there's too many DOIs, I would suggest checking some of those DOIs to see if there's self-citations. If they are, in your decision letter, you would want to make a remark to the authors that these citations are optional. So Jian-Hong, if there's anything you would like to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. We cannot. We do not encourage you in any situation. Do not please delete or edit the reviewer's comments. You can instead add your own comments in the decision letter, indicating that those citation requests are optional and not required. But if some reviewer comments includes like inappropriate language or like very inappropriate, like in terms of like not mentioning anything related to science, you can reach out to us and we will investigate.
All
I'm
right.
wondering if I could get a little bit of clarification. I apologize on the question about right, if now that we're an editor, really fundamentally, can I still submit a paper to PLOS One as an author? And if so, how does that get assigned to, obviously, like, not me?
I believe
Yes.
that's one of the checks. So we do check if you are like it's not the same person. The part of our system has like a check to make sure that the name doesn't match with any of the people on the authors, but it does get kind of dicey when it's a machine, so it's not completely like accurate 100% of the time, but there's a check to make sure we don't invite academic editors who authored paper and invite them to the same paper that they're submitting. So yeah.
But essentially, if for some reason that were to happen, I would simply just decline the paper and state the reasons for declining, correct?
Yes, that would be the best way to go about it.
Okay, thank you.
So we had several questions about before we started the meeting, which is regarding about how can I find more potential reviewers besides the 30 persons in the system. And this is also another question that is similar, is like what to do when you send 30 plus invitations and you cannot find any reviewers. And I believe Jian-Hong kind of covered that, which is if you do not find the people within the system, I mean, it is a time-consuming process, and that's why we really appreciate the work that you do. Some of the suggested places include PubMed, Google Scholar, as well as your own circle of colleagues. Jian-Hong, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, in the slides I mentioned that if you invited a whole bunch of reviewers and no one agreed to evaluate the manuscript, that's generally a sign that the manuscript might be a candidate for rejection without peer review. So you might reevaluate it based on a publication criteria again and see if you can reject it without peer review.
All right, so we also had a question. Will you send a link to the recording and slides via email? I believe we do. I just need to make sure who sends it. Lastly, we have a question about what is PLOS One doing to encourage more social science open access publishing? Jian-Hong, I know you're not with the Behavioral and Social Sciences editor team, so but would you have any comments to make about open access publishing and how we're encouraging it?
Uh, sorry, where is that question? I kind of lost that.
I'm sorry. What is PLOS One doing to encourage more social science open access publishing?
So I believe like for all the disciplines or subject areas, we encourage authors to share the data or publish the peer review history, and just to make the analysis and the research more robust. I'm not sure if that answers your question or if I misunderstood the question regarding the open science part.
I think that might be one that we might just have to follow up, asking a specific editor in the behavioral and social sciences team. So we have a question about PLOS One is not following citations based on impact factors. So how to compare the PLOS One with other journals that are following citation-based impact factor? I believe PLOS One still gets an impact factor. We just don't really prioritize that. So, Jian Hong, I think this question is better suited to you.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the authors. Like we do like have like an annual a service like from the authors, like why they choose PLOS One or why they not choose PLOS One, right? Everyone have their own reasons, but the general comments we received is that PLOS One is considered like friendly for earlier career researchers or for anyone who like just need the paper to be like open access. I think that although we do not like discuss impact factor much, still we have like a relatively decent impact factor. So I'm not sure. I think I'm not the one to judge on how do we compare PLOS One versus the other journals. I think so maybe some of the authors might be a better person to answer this question, like why they choose PLOS One versus the other journals, right?
I do want to say that because PLOS One tends to be very multidisciplinary and tends to be very broad, we do get very interesting papers that might not find home in other places. So it is just a place where a lot of research that would otherwise not be represented be able to find a home. That's about it for all the questions that we have today. Let's see, I think it is more of, so we have a follow-up. I think it's more of a question of comparing apples to apples in terms of how your impact factor is calculated versus the impact factor of other journals.
I may be misinterpreting the original question asker's question, but that's what I thought that meant.
Yeah, let us know we're answering that question sufficiently. Dr. Hassan, if you're still here.
Yes, I am here. Yeah.
Would you just kind of mention whether or not we answered that question, or if we are understanding the question correctly?
Yes, I have got understood, but my question it was a little bit tricky, but it's okay because most of the journals they are based on citation-based impact factors. PLOS One also has citation-based impact factor, right? But in the web page they have mentioned that we don't believe in impact factor, but PLOS One evaluates its own way for the standard of the journal. So I was a little bit confused. So how do they calculate their impact? So that's why I asked. Another thing, most of the journals providing editorial papers option, but I didn't find any editorial paper option in PLOS One. So what do you have about editorial papers in your future plan or current policy?
Jin Hong, would you know about our editorial paper policy? Like, I know the publication criteria sets out specific like research that are covered by PLOS One.
No, I don't have any. I can follow up with you if that's okay.
Okay, well, I guess what I could do is I could just write your question down, and then I think I do have your email contact information.
Yes, of course.
So I'll send someone who I'll ask who can answer that question specifically on like the editorial papers.
Yes,
And
yes.
also your question about impact factor. I believe we do emphasize the rigor of scientific research in terms of like having a methodology that is scientifically rigorous over impact
Yes.
factor, but it is a question of how that's tracked compared to other journals. I don't know the specific answer to that, so let me just get the answer to you, and yeah, I'll have someone who has more appropriate expertise answer that for you. All right, if
Okay,
that's it for
thank you.
question, the closing is reach out to us anytime. We're more than happy to speak with our
Charles,
academic
we have a
editors.
question about the email templates for
Oh.
revision rejection to others.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay. Yeah, so there is a general email that we have, which is plos@plos.org. If you have more specific emails, an earlier slide showed that, you know, if you want to ask journal specific questions, you can go there. If you're not sure who to talk to that specific question, you can send your general questions to plos@plos.org, and it should redirect to the appropriate person. Yeah, and
Yeah, for the email template to others, yes, in EM, we have the template regarding like the first paragraph and last paragraph. But if we would like to issue a revision or rejection, we highly encourage you to like fill out your reasons why you issued such a, like, for instance, rejection, and ideally cite our publication criteria and clearly outlines your concerns so that reviewers and authors can understand like why their papers are rejected to avoid further appeal cases.
thanks for catching that, Jun Hong. Did that answer your question sufficiently? All right. So at the final part of this, we can offer breakout rooms. I see there's about 8 people left, so I'll just stop recording. And if you want to stick around and chat with other academic editors, feel free to do so. And then we'll probably close out when everyone kind of goes on their own way.